Welcome to the Wealth Detective Podcast. Are you ready to become your own wealth detective, to find money in new ways and experience wealth like never before? Well, come along for some wild stories that will teach you, inspire you, maybe even shock you a little bit. And let's get ready to build wealth together. All right, welcome back, everybody. So glad you are here for another week of the Wealth Detective Podcast with me, Jamie Maddox, your host. Okay, today we are going to be talking about titration. And before you're like, and I'm out, bear with me for just a second, okay? So, have you ever heard of, there's a few different variations of this analogy. I don't love it, but it's honestly the best way to get the point across, in my opinion. So we're going to go with it. Okay, so you know the whole saying, like, the best way to boil a frog or something is like to slowly turn up the heat, right? So it's like if you throw, which, I mean, I've never wanted to eat a frog, so that's partly why I'm like laughing at this analogy, but I know there are people that do, so it probably is a real one. There's my like little tangential thought for you. Okay, so anyway, back on track. So the whole point is, if you have a pot of boiling water and you throw a frog in there, it is going to jump right out, right? Because it's like hot, burning, ouch, not going to work, okay? But if you put a pot of cold water on the stove and you turn it on, you put the frog in and you slowly let it heat up, in theory, you will then slowly boil the frog. Okay, I've never tried it, but we're going to trust the science here. Okay, so this in essence is titration. It is slowly becoming more comfortable with and familiar with something. Okay, now here's the interesting thing, because there's always a light and a dark to something. This is also grooming in abusive situations, okay? And I point that out because I want you to see that there is always duality, first off, okay? And anything can be used for good or for bad. And I want you to recognize it because sometimes when you've experienced any sort of abuse or manipulation or grooming, the feelings and sensations of titration on the positive end feels so unsafe and uncomfortable to your system. You're more highly aware of that feeling of like becoming more and more comfortable and okay and adjusted. And there's a part of your body that remembers, ooh, I have felt this before and it led to something really bad and really not safe, okay? This is huge because the one thing with money is you can use titration with money. So let's give a couple of examples here. So one of them is building a savings account or like an investment account or any sort of like savings type account, okay? A lot of people really struggle with this, okay? And there's multiple reasons for that. But one of them is that a lot of times it's like, oh, you have to put all this money in there fast. But if you can slowly, consistently put $5 a week, $25 a week, $100 a month in there, then it builds this account slowly and consistently, and your body becomes used to having a savings account. And you just, when you put the money there, for me, the rule is like, you just don't touch it. Okay. And so it's like, I put the money there, you don't touch it. And your system slowly becomes accustomed to being able to not only save and invest, but also to hold that money. Okay. And that's why that rule is in place for me, because it really is just about a practice of being able to hold larger quantities of money and feel safe holding that money. Okay. But that's why you start small. If maybe you've never had this practice or never been able to be consistent with it or any of the things, that's why you start small. You titrate. You slowly move up, because at some point you'll suddenly be like, oh, wait, this is working. I have a savings account and I can actually do $500 a month, or I can do whatever X amount of money a month, and I can hold it in my savings. And this feels really great. Okay, so do you see that? That's like, again, you slowly turn up the water, you slowly turn up the heat. Okay, I know a lot of you also own your own businesses, right? You're entrepreneurs. This is a lot of times why people start with selling lower cost offers and then build their way up to higher priced offers. You're building that titration. You're letting your system feel comfortable. Oh, okay, it was safe to receive $25 from that person. Okay, cool. All right, maybe next time I can receive $50 for that same service. Ooh, okay. Yep, still here, still safe, still nothing bad happened. They didn't hate me. Cool. And you slowly build up until you're like, actually, what I offer at this point is the value of $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever that amount is. Okay. And your system recognizes and has the opportunity to build up and become accustomed to holding and receiving those amounts of money. Okay. But again, if you've had some negative experiences where it did not lead to positive things happening, you have to be a little more aware of this. And that's why I'm bringing it up, because I'm sure a lot of you have actually heard of titration before, maybe not the word, but the concept of it. And I want to make you aware of it because I've heard some of my clients be like, but that doesn't really work for me, or some form of that sentiment of well, I've tried the titration and I could do it for a month, but then I ended up spending all my savings, or, some form of I couldn't hold it. I couldn't keep doing it. And what the correlation that I've recognized and the pattern that I've recognized is that it comes down to usually there's some form of abuse, grooming, or manipulation that happened that your system is still ooh, it's the opposite direction, but somewhat of the same sensation. So is this really okay? So number one, give yourself a lot of grace, okay? Because it's hard and you have dealt with things that many people may never have to deal with in their life. Thank goodness, right? And so give yourself some grace. And with that, give yourself permission to say, ooh, even if I recognize the sensation, can I adjust my understanding of it to be positive, to be something that actually leads to a good outcome, right? Now, it doesn't mean not being aware of when it potentially is happening in the negative sense, okay? But it's getting the discernment within your own self and within your body to say, okay, is this a titration that will lead to really positive things, even if it feels uncomfortable, even if I have felt this in the past and it didn't feel safe? Is this a safe situation? And am I willing to feel it long enough to hold it? Okay, I'm going to say that again. Are you willing to feel it long enough to hold it? Because that's the thing. So again, going back to wanting to build savings or an investment account or any sort of nest egg, quote unquote, are you willing to feel the discomfort, not being unsafe, but the discomfort of holding higher, larger amounts of money, of receiving higher amounts of money from clients, of raising your prices? Okay. All right. So I'm going to also tie this back to dating. Okay. I have had to do more work in titration with dating than in any other aspect of my entire life. Okay. But if you understand money and energy, everything is a relationship. So if you adjust your relationship with money, it will naturally adjust your relationships with people, places, with yourself. If you start with yourself, it'll adjust things with your money. Okay. It's all related because they're all a relationship, right? So with dating, and I don't want to go into the deeper part. Maybe I'll do another episode where I really go into the very specific aspects of how I titrated up in my dating life. But literally, I have recently had conversations with a guy saying, no, I can only commit to seeing you tomorrow. I can't think past that future because I'm having to titrate. I didn't use the word titrate because I didn't want to go into it that deeply, but but basically saying, I need to feel comfortable and safe enough to just hold this one more day. We're just going to hold this one more day. And it's kind of in a sense, it's a bizarre concept for some people because they're kind of like, you can't think to next week. Because I'm like, no, I might run. But if you want to have a chance, let's just take it a day at a time. Okay. That's where that phrase comes from, take it a day at a time. And again, it's usually meant in a negative context. People are struggling. They're having a hard time. You don't know if they can keep going. Right. But that's what I want you to realize. This also happens in really positive, good situations. And it's uncomfortable in the positive, good situations, okay? And so don't let that discomfort or those feelings of having experienced it negatively stop you from experiencing it in the positive, right? Because if I were to have said, oh, every time I felt uncomfortable as I worked to titrate my dating life, if I had stopped every time I had felt sensations that had led to negative things in the past, I would not have done 90% of the last 10 years of my life, okay? It takes some conscious effort and some conscious awareness to say, no, I am willing to sit with this discomfort, sit with this uncertainty, sit with this unknown, and feel it. Okay, and as a reminder, it takes 90 to am I doing my math right? Minute and a half to 2 minutes. Anyway, we're going to go with that. Minute and a half to 2 minutes. So about 90 seconds, okay, to fully process a sensation through your body. Not just think about it, not just intellectualize it, not just mind your way through it, but to actually feel it in your body. And you will feel the release. You will feel when the energy shifts, okay? But it's uncomfortable. So set a timer. Friends, I do this. I will literally know that I need to feel something, or I can feel something rising that I'm like, oh boy, that's uncomfortable. Not sure I want to do that. Not sure I want to feel that. And I will set a timer on my phone so that I have a safety net of being like, okay, if I can just sit with this feeling, this sensation for 90 seconds, even if I feel like I'm going to die in that 90 seconds. And I'm never dramatic, friends, okay? But I sometimes feel like I'm going to die. So just know you might feel like that, but you probably won't die, okay? So know that, but also let yourself be like, I think I'm going to die. Be a little dramatic, okay? I'm giving you permission to be a little bit dramatic. Set the timer. Feel it. Because when you do, you actually start to get the things you want. You actually start to get the money that you want in your life. You actually start to get the relationships that you want in your life. You actually start to get the travel that you want in your life. You actually start to get the aliveness, all the things that you've been seeking and wanting. Whatever it is that your soul is yearning for, it does come with discomfort and uncertainty. And it doesn't have to be a bad or scary thing. However, it can become a beautiful practice. And that's what I'm inviting you to do. I just want you to practice. Again, going back to, okay, we're going to do $5 a week to my savings account. And we're not going to touch that savings no matter what. And here's what you say to yourself. You say, I'm not touching that savings. Another way will be provided. If I'm in need of that money, the money will come in a different way. And you repeat that to yourself and you sit with the uncertainty and the discomfort and the questions until you process the emotion, you process the sensation, and then you move forward with trust. Okay, that was a lot. And I hope it was really insightful and really powerful, because when you really intentionally commit to and choose in to this practice, I guarantee it will change your life. And when it does, I want to hear it, because your money and your hell yes life is out there. So let's find it together. If you enjoyed this episode, there are more tips, tricks, and fun ways to bring in money in my weekly newsletter. Sign up and get all the juicy details every single Monday.